What's up, everyone? It's your boy Terry, speaking from the garage shop again. Here to offer you some more big bang for the buck product and info. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are saying, Terry, that looks just like your Trailblazer SS fuel tank. Now, we know that you installed it in the truck because we saw the starting party. And you're right. I was talking with the good people at Aeromotive, and they developed two new products because I could not wait to get this truck up in the air and yank the tank out and do a video because it's a game changer. You definitely want to check it out. All right? But we're not talking about that today. No, we're going to do a video on that, but we're not talking about that today. What we're going to talk about today is when I was fueling and setting up the fuel system on the Trailblazer SS with Aeromotive products, a lot of people asked me questions about the sending unit. Now, the sending unit is part of the fueling system that works the gauge that lets you know if your tank is on E or if it's full. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go over where I keep my pieces, and we're going to have a little chat. Let's go. Now, before we even start, make sure you hit subscribe and the thumbs up and that bell, smack that bell, pow! Just pop that bell. That way you get notified when I put videos out because remember, we're doing a giveaway and we're also raffling off an engine to celebrate my 200th video. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. You know, it's gonna be a nice engine. You're gonna make sure. Now, the only way you can be on board, the only way you can participate is being a subscriber to Coverman66 on YouTube. Now, this is the sending unit out of my Trailblazer SS. It's pretty much just like any other sending unit. I mean, the shape may be different, but it works in the same principle. At this point, it's empty. The tank is empty. Now, as gas enters the tank, all right, you're gonna start seeing your gauge go towards full. What's happening is the gas is making this piece right here called the float rise. And when it gets to the point where it can't go any further, your gauge should reach full. And so that's the whole principle behind the sending unit. Now, if you're replacing your fuel tank, a stock fuel tank, chances are all you're gonna have to do is take the stock sending unit out of the old tank and put it in the new tank and you're good to go. Most of the time when we remove the tanks, we're not putting that same old tank back in. We're either going with a better tank, we're going with an all aluminum tank, or we might even go with a fuel cell. And when you go that route, this type of setup for the sending unit will come, it's a universal one. So basically, you know, it works on the same principle where the float, as it lays low, empty tank. As it goes up, full tank. All right, but this one you're gonna have to modify. See, they give you screws where you have to either cut this to make it shorter, depending on the application. Most of the time, if you have an aftermarket sending unit, aftermarket tank, either fuel cell, there's a strong possibility you're gonna have to do some adjustments to the sending unit to get the gauge to read correctly. You can move the whole unit up or down by shimming the connecting rod there. You could make adjustments here because most of the time you can move this part of the sending unit up or down, or you could simply bend the rod. All three of which will alter the reading to the fuel gauge. All right, we're gonna do a couple of scenarios. Now, I'm not talking about like the gauge not working. Now, if the gauge is not working, it's probably gonna be either one of the two wires aren't, you know, making a connection or something like that. But if we're talking about just the gauge is not reading properly. Let's take scenario one. I got 5 gallons of gas in the tank and it still registers as E. The gauge starts moving once I get about 6 or 7 gallons in, and when I go all the way full, the gauge only reads 3/4 of the way. That tells me that the float is too high. Okay, so what's happening is the gas is here, all right? So he said he's got 5 gallons of gas. He's got 5 gallons of gas, let's do it right here. He's got 5 gallons of gas right about right here. So he says once he starts hitting the 6th, 7th gallon, that's when the float starts to move. So he's got 5 gallons. So now 6 gallons, 7 gallons, all right, 8 gallons so far. And he says when it's all the way full, it's really not full because it's probably at this point. He says when it's all the way full, that's when it reads about 3/4 of the tank. So the fix for that is you could either lower the whole sending unit into the tank because what's happening is you should have like maybe 2.5, 3 gallons of tank, 3 gallons. That's what I like to do. I like to put 2.5, 3 gallons in and then set my sending unit. All right, so that way now, once 2 gallons hit, because you don't want to, you don't want to have it when it's empty and you put like a little bit of gas in it and it starts to go up, because you want to have that reserve. All right, so that guy's problem is he needs to either bend this, bring this down, because by bending the rod down is actually going to raise the float up. Same with moving this part of the sending unit down, it's going to raise the float up. And that's how I would take care of that. And that's a common thing when you're doing a custom tank. Here's scenario number 2. Terry, I got a full tank of gas, gauge is reading full. Once I got to a little under a quarter of a tank or an eighth of a tank, I ran out of gas. Car cut right off. How do I fix that? So now if your gas gauge is reading full, but it's not reading empty, chances are you're gonna have to just do the opposite. So here we go again. Let's say this is the point where it's reaching is not empty. Okay, so all you gotta do is simply either move the sending unit upwards or either bend the rod upwards. Because once you bend the rod upwards, now what's gonna happen is it's gonna move up like that. And so now as the gas goes down, you're gonna get a more accurate read. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna put about 4 to 5 gallons of gas in the tank. Then we're gonna install the sending unit. We're gonna put a little power to the car and we're gonna see where the fuel gauge reads. Then we're gonna bend the rod. We're gonna see the difference of bending it up. We see the difference in bending it down. So it's gonna be nice. Let's do this. We here at the garage shop like independent testing. So put the 5 gallons in so we can see how the float reads. All right, I got the pump and the sending unit back in the tank. I got it hooked up to the truck, and I got about maybe 5 to 7 gallons of fuel in this tank. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put power to the sending unit. We're gonna look and see where the gauge is reading. Then we're gonna adjust the sending unit up and down to see the difference in the reading. So let's check it out. Okay, we're in the Trailblazer, and this is where it's reading right now. Before we do any type of modifications to the sending unit, this is where we're reading right now. And that's about in between, I would say, a little over a quarter tank. You know, more towards the half tank. We'll send the unit out. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bend it down somewhat. And if my calculations are correct, it's gonna read more towards the full. Now I got it marked. I don't know if you can see it, but I got it marked so I know where this thing is positioned at all times. So this is exactly how it would fit in the truck. So let's check it out. Yeah, this is with the rod bent downward. And you can see, now we're reading halfway. Oh, a little bit more than halfway actually. So if you bend the rod down or either move that portion of the sending unit down, it's gonna read more towards the full. We're gonna take the rod right here and we're just gonna bend it up a little. Not much, just a little bit. And we're gonna put it back in the same position. I got it marked right there. Exactly. All right, just simply bending the sending unit upwards or either moving the sending unit upwards. This is what you'll get. You see how before it was in between a quarter tank and about a half tank, but now you can see that it's more towards the quarter tank. And this was just a slight bend upwards, and this is how you gauge to start reading. So this is a good way to show you how to manipulate it. And if you go the opposite way, of course, it's going to read more towards full. So, you know, you're going to have to play with it. You're going to have to figure out which is the best way, because my rule of thumb, I like to put at least 2 to 3 gallons of gas in the tank, and then that would be my reserve. So I want the tank to read empty, even with 2 gallons in the tank. So this is a good way to set your gas tank and for you to read, have your fuel gauge read accurately or the way you want it. And also, whenever you're working with gas, please always keep a well-ventilated area and always have a fire extinguisher handy just in case something jumps off, you're prepared. I hope you enjoyed this test, and I hope it helps you out at some point when you do a modification to your gas tank or either put a fuel cell in or what have you. You know, it's fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. But I'm looking at the clock on the wall. You know, I still didn't get batteries. I gotta get some batteries for that clock so I can tell what time it is. Or should I say ceiling? Time for me to head on out and do some more videos for you guys, starting with the Aeromotive video. You don't want to miss that, because if you have a saddlebag tank like this and you have an Aeromotive setup, you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Or if you're thinking about getting an Aeromotive setup, which you should, you don't want to miss this one, because this is going to be a good one. But as always, please be easy, and I'll catch you guys real soon. Take care.